us Tom Ross, artist. Yay, thank you, Tom. His return visit. We're going to keep him coming back as many times as we possibly can. And then we also have Melody Groves with us, who is an author on Billy the Kid. So we're thrilled to have them join us this afternoon. Tom is going to talk about the storyline of the paintings and a little information on Billy, and then Melody will chime in and talk about Billy the Kid's mother, Catherine McCarty Antrim. I left the T out, I apologize. But yeah, so that's a different skew on the story. And she also has a book out, Before Billy the Kid, and she has it available in the back for sale if you'd like to take advantage of that. Also downstairs, we have some books available that have been written. We have Chasing Billy the Kid, which was written by Rob Young and Kurt Howes. We also have Tall Tales and probably a Few Lies book down there about Billy the Kid. Also, there's a magazine that Bob Bosbell actually publishes. It's called the True West Magazine. It has the full story on Billy the Kid and the traveling wake. And so that's available for sale downstairs as well. And we have a few neckerchiefs or handkerchiefs that Dave Garcia has graciously printed up for us. And it has the kid on it, so you're welcome to join in and purchase one of those as well. In the meantime, please enjoy. I'm going to turn this over to, I don't know, you guys can throw up a coin and see, but maybe we'll get started with Tom and he can talk about his exhibit and the process of how Billy the Kid Traveling Wake came about. So thank you again for joining us. We're thrilled to have you, and please, thank you, Tom.
Is this working? Good. All right. Bob Bosbell and Buckeye Blake are old friends of mine, and one of the many things that we share in common is a fascination with Billy the Kid. And we've talked about doing this kind of show for a couple of years, in which we incorporate the historical, like in Bob Bell's paintings, and the mythical, like in mine, and then Buckeye's interpretation of the combination of the two. It's because to us, Billy lives in the two worlds. One is the historical and one is the mythic. And so this show is going to be going over to the Spirit of the West Gallery in Scottsdale in October for a 3-month show. And there's a lot more pieces than just these. And we do have the life-size Billy in Death, which was supposed to be here, but it's over in Galisteo right now, and we still need some more work to do on it. So that was the one thing that we had in common, and that's how we all became friends and came around with this show. And my take on it was, as you can see, was based on the ballet of Billy the Kid, not the 1938 ballet written by Aaron Copland and Eugene Loring, which is where this character comes from, but the idea of ballet as being choreographed. This happens, of course, in stage plays and in movies. The actors are told where to take their places. But in Moby Dick, Ahab talks to Starbuck, and he reminds Starbuck that this act is immutably decreed. It was rehearsed by thee and me 1,000,000 years before the ocean rolled. So in that, Melville is saying this is what Ahab believes, is that this is every act we do has already been choreographed in the predestination. So I just incorporated that with some of the ideas of the spotlight that you see here, and in the three, Garrett, his two back there, and that one where they're all dancing in the same set with the spotlight shining on them. This is the idea that all the acts of life have been written out long ago. So that was my take on it. The first one that you see coming in is the croquet game. I don't know if Billy ever played croquet. I'm sure he did. But there's been this photograph going around, Billy the Kid playing croquet, and everyone's trying to, and of course, what gives it away, at least for me, is that in the photograph, no one's armed. And in 1878, 1879, when Lincoln was the most dangerous town to live in America, no one went anywhere unarmed. In her book, she has a photograph of George Coe. Coe was a friend of Billy the Kid's, and he got his finger shot off in the gunfight at Blazers Mill. Well, years later, when Coe got married, his bride-to-be, his wife-to-be, demanded that he take off his gun belt before he said, so he takes off the gun belt, puts it down, I do, he put it back on. And that proves to me that these guys never went anywhere without those guns. And so in that photograph of Billy the Kid, and if you think about it, the murder of Tunstall was an ambush, the murder of Brady was, so there was a lot of killing that was not straight up facing each other off. And if you're playing croquet, I just can't imagine them doing it without being heavily armed. So in my painting, I'm not trying to refute or say that the photograph is true, but if it was true, Billy and his friends would have been armed, as far as I'm concerned. The second one of mine is called Hat Dance, and it has Billy doing a dance in the spotlight. So it combines the ballet act, but it's also Billy as a martyr. He takes the traditional form of crucified Jesus, so he is a martyr. If you see him that way, maybe he's a martyr for the Old West that is rapidly moving into the 20th century. This, in the movie Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, Pat Garrett, played by James Coburn, is talking to Billy early in the movie with Chris Christopherson, and Garrett says to him, times are changing, and Billy, the Chris Christopherson character says, times maybe, not me. So you could see that this Billy is a martyr to a time that is rapidly going to the moon, and he'll have no place in it. The third one of mine is the large one here, the arrest at Stinking Springs. This is one of my I've painted this scene hundreds of times. Most people, if you look at paintings of winter scenes, the people are skiing or tobogganing and laughing or drinking a Mai Tai, whatever it is. But for these guys, hunting Billy the Kid out here on the Llano in the winter of December of 1880 had to be anything other than happy and pretty. This had, the weather would almost work against them. It was that, the freezing weather, your feet are cold, your hands are cold, and you're trying to kill someone who's trying to kill you. So this is why I enjoy the starkness of, and they all have the scarves on and the gloves. But anyone who's walked around in the winter in cowboy boots knows it's just, it's not REI or any of that stuff. So, and it adds, of course, a degree of tenacity that these men had to continue pursuing these outlaws in the winter. So, and then the next one of mine is the smaller one. This is at Stinking Springs. One of the men, the guy they killed, it was Charlie Beaudry, who's a friend of Billy's. And when they examined the body, on Beaudry's body, there was a photograph of him and his wife, Manuela, on their wedding day, and it had been stained by some of Charlie's blood. So that's why this is not an exact reproduction of the photograph, but it's the idea of this great moment in your life, and it's going to wind up covered in your own blood. This one here, the last one here, this is a Bob Bo's bell that I own, and it shows Billy right in front of you with his hands in handcuffs, in manacles, and a very tall Pat Garrett standing by. The icicles are coming off the roof, and this is when Billy was being taken from Las Vegas, New Mexico, down to Lamy, where he got off the train in my front yard, and then he spent the winter in Santa Fe, in a jail. So this would be the scene where Billy goes out, and all the people are staring at him, and this is where probably the first time he saw himself as kind of a pop celebrity. He even mentions to Garrett, did you see all the people that came out, to take a look at me? So this is Billy starting to move into this realm of the popular consciousness. And of course, they take him after he spends the winter in jail in Santa Fe. He goes down to Las Cruces, La Mesilla, where he's put on trial for the killing of Sheriff Brady. He's found guilty, and they take him up to Lincoln to be hung. And while he's in Lincoln, he kills his two guards, Bell and Ollinger, this is the act that elevates him. This is something that in James Bond movies, or if you ever saw the movie, TV show Wild Wild West with Robert Conrad, no matter what situation he's in, he'd pull something out, and that was the perfect gadget to getting out of. And this is that kind of thing where a man in chains is able to kill both his guards and get away, and this puts Billy up there with the supernatural. And so this, again, is more of a dance. I'm going to have curtains on it, and I'm going to put an audience in front so that they're watching a play, but that's what it's about. And then, of course, we have Mr. J.W. Bell getting killed here. Then the other big one there are Garrett and Poe and McKinney on the night that they're going to kill Billy. And again, you can see that in the building in the back, there's only one light on in a window, and it gives a sense, is that the room Billy's in, this sort of thing. And of course, they're doing their, and they don't have room on the vest for the stars, so they put them on their hats. But this, again, this is playing around with the historical truths, and then you just move them into the realm of the dream world, the world of myth. I am not originally from New Mexico, so I think I'm the only person in this room, or at least in the state, whose grandfather or grandmother didn't know Billy the Kid. So this is, anyway, so that's Garrett. That's the night they're going to kill little Billy. And then the next painting is another one by Bell that I own, and it's called Quien Es, and this is the moment before Garrett's bullet strikes Billy. And he has his suspenders off, and he's going to get shot by a man he doesn't, of course, he doesn't know who kills him. And so that's basically, and that's the end of his story. And in the back there, you can see the charcoal rubbing. The black and white piece, that's a drawing by Bell of Garrett ambushing Tom O'Folliard, I think. But right below it is a rubbing of Frank Stewart's grave, or I guess you'd call it that. Because Stewart is one of the men in this painting, though his name was not Frank Stewart, and apparently he has been buried in Raton. They don't know where, so they put a monument to his memory, and they did a rubbing off, which is beautiful. So this is how I tell the story. Again, it's based on historical fact, but it has more to do with, again, the dream world. And if you think about a lot of this, the Old West, a lot of it is history, but a lot of it is mythology, invented, made up. And you talked about the OK Corral or George Custer, and you can get into barroom brawls and stories that go on and on and on. And somewhere in between the myth and the reality, there is that thing that is true. But it comes down to the point where most people will wind up believing what it is they want to believe. And when they do that, you can't argue with them. You go, just have a nice day, and that's it. So that's what this art is about. And we're going to have a lot more of Bob Bell's pieces in the Arizona show, because he deals a lot more with the reality of Billy's story. And Buckeye and I are more involved with the mythic tale of the kid. So, any questions? Yes.
I do have a question. Over here on this painting with all of your deputies,
Yeah.
why are their heads long and skinny like a spaghetti?
And why are the hats so big?
Yeah.
It's a dream. It's a dream.
Well, I know why the hat's so big. It's because everybody has this great big old thing.
Well, they only have one leg. There's only one guy that has two legs. So, and you can see they're walking on their tiptoes. So this is all the ballet thing. It's like this. So you can't, I mean, that could have been what it looked like. I've been to the spot where the old the stone house once stood out of Taiban. But again, this is Pat Garrett of your dream, and the big hats, the funny heads.
Yeah, I guess if Pat Garrett is in your dream, yeah.
What's that?
I said, I guess if Pat Garrett is in your dreams, yeah.
Is what?
Pat Garrett is in your dreams.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. No, I love the guy. I like them all.
Is this last painting here, is this a watercolor?
Yeah, that's Bob Bell's watercolor, yeah. And you can see the icicle, and you can see Billy grinning. And like I said, this is the moment where he realizes that, boy, these people have come out just to look at him. And there was another scene, which you may write about in your book, is when he was being taken from Santa Fe down to La Mesilla in a stagecoach. And another one was coming north. And in whaling, you have what's called a gam. It's where two whaling ships would pause, and they would say, how long have you been out from New Bedford? How are the Dodgers doing? This kind of stuff. And they did this. They had a gam, and there was a doctor, I can't remember his name, you'd know, but he was coming north in the stagecoach, and he told the killer, Billy the Kid, is right over there. And this guy goes over to look at this killer. It's just like this little boy sitting, instead of this big monster, it's just this little boy. So, and again, the kid's story does play out really well. It does go from one act to the next act, and it starts getting that the predestination that it's like Romeo and Juliet. No matter what they do, they're always screwing it up, and it just comes down to they're dead, and Billy's story. To me, it works that way, where it goes from one act to the act. And in the movie Pat Garrett and the Billy Kid, you'll see the same sort of thing, where Garrett is very reluctant. In the beginning of the movie, he tells Billy, "In 5 days, I'm making you get out of the." So you can see that Garrett is a very reluctant manhunter. But when it comes down to it, of course, he kills Billy. And if you've ever seen the movie before, after he shoots Billy, he turns and he sees the mirror with his own reflection. He shoots that too. Now, that's, of course, a complete mythology and symbolic, but it's by killing Billy, he's killed part of himself, and may have killed himself, because, as you all know, in the movie, Garrett talks about, I plan to get old with the country, and of course he doesn't. He dies. And the movie begins with him dying in 1908, but he was killed in 1909, when in fact he was killed in 1908. So, and that's when these guys all start moving into that realm of myth, which is the thing that we all, know through movies or whatever. And so that's it. If that's Billy the Kid, I'm not here. Yeah.
Actually, this question is for both of you from your experiences. Speaking about the movie, so that's the Sam Peckinpah who's on that. But of all the movies, which one do you think is really the most?
None of them. They're movies. They're movies. Now, what I will say, in The Left-Handed Gun with Paul Newman, you will see when he surrenders at Stinking Springs, when Garrett captures him. Both him and Chris Christopherson strike the same pose. They surrender like this, not like this. They surrender. They take the Jesus position. When Paul Newman is taken to Lincoln and Bob Ollinger is shoving him off the wagon, you have to stop. If you have it on video, you have to stop it there, because the one thing you're not seeing is in the background of the store. It's the name of the store is God's Golden Rule, which is do unto others as you would. But if you're watching the movie, you're watching them, and you have to stop it for that. And then the other one, after Garrett kills Billy, remember, he doesn't have a gun, and he staggers forward, and he falls on his back, and he lands on the tongue of the wagon, and he's upside down. Well, that's the crucifixion. Who was the disciple that was crucified upside down? Was it Peter or Michael? Anyway, so Billy strikes the Jesus pose, and at the end he dies as Saint Michael or Saint Peter. So these guys work, and by using that God's Golden Rule, showing Ollinger, who did not do unto others as he would, because he was a prick. So these movie makers add these Hurt Hatfield plays Moultrie, he of course is the fictional storyteller, who at the end he realizes that the Billy the Kid he has created in his head is not, this guy's just a punk. And he's the guy that he becomes the Judas who betrays Garrett. So it's, of course, none of that is historical, but that's what the story means. And this, what you need is, what is the meaning of it? And when these guys go off on these tangents, I think that's a great way to use history to show it as mythology, but also as a parable. I mean, I think a lot of these stories that are really kind of minor, like the OK Corral or Billy the Kid, the reason they last and actually go around the world is because they have there's a certain parable to it, and historians will try to find the truth by going through the history books. That's the foundation. But to understand what Billy the Kid means, you have to go, you stand on the history, and then you let your imagination run. I tell people, anyone who saw the movie The English Patient, that was written by a Canadian author named Michael Ondaatje. But if you look at the book he wrote before that, it's called The Collected Works of Billy the Kid, Left-Handed Poems. So that same guy who wrote The English Patient writes this beautiful book of poetry in which he takes Billy's story and he twists it and morphs it, and because he's playing with it. But so this is what Billy the Kid and all your heroes really can do. They are very malleable. If you want an evil Billy the Kid, you got him. If you want a heroic Billy the Kid, what do you want? And that's why filmmakers, even, it's when they make a movie, they say based on a true story, right away there's not going to be a thing in here that's true. So, if you want to know who Billy the Kid is, you got to go there. you got to read. You have to understand what his stories.
What's your opinion on all the movie representation?
Frankly, I don't watch a whole lot of movies, but Young Guns, the very first one, is supposedly as close to, facts. And of course, facts are in this particular case are kind of soft. But, okay. Thank you, Tom. Tom Ross, everybody. I do think Billy, Young Guns and 1 and 2 are probably as close. Now, I'm really kind of upset that there's a Young Guns 3 coming along, they're saying, and Emilio Estevez is going to be producing, directing it, and he's going to be starring again as Billy the Kid. And Estevez is what, in his 40s? Maybe even 50? Billy the Kid was 20 when he died. That's the way Hollywood works because Emilio Estevez has the money and the name. I get that. Let me talk, thank you for your questions and thank you for being here. I thought maybe we would have 3 or 4 people, and this is great. We have at least 10 times that. I appreciate that. I am not from Raton. My mother-in-law, Jean Groves, is right there. She's from Raton. My husband, Mike Groves, is back over there somewhere. He's from Raton. And he's here helping my mother-in-law, who is getting up there in age, just like all of us. So he was listening on the radio about this Billy the Kid event going on, and so he called me and he said, "You wrote a book on Billy the Kid, and you love Billy the Kid, and how about if you come up?" And I went, "Okay." So I took the train yesterday, and I had planned to go, or I thought I would go to the event last night, but my train was 3.5 hours late. I got to the train terminal at 11:30 yesterday morning, and we left at 3:30, and I got in here at 8:15 last night. So yesterday was a long day, but that has nothing to do with Billy the Kid. I was asked to talk briefly about Billy the Kid's mom. And some people, and I've talked about Billy the Kid a lot, and when I mention his mom, people go, "Oh, he had a mom." Yes, he did. His mother was incredibly influential, very, very influential in his life. He apparently was a lot like her. She was born around either 1829 or 1830. She came to she was born in Ireland, very definitely an Irish woman. At the age of 16, we know for sure that she got on the ship, the Devonshire, and sailed across to New York. Now, she was registered as a indentured servant. Now, what that means is, she was 16. She was either a nanny, a governess, or she was going to be, a laundress and places like that. She was not a servant like a slave. Usually in that day and age, it was 7 years. You say, "Okay, you pay for me to come over, and I will work for you, and in 7 years, and you pay me X amount of dollars, and in 7 years, I'm done, and you will let me out of my contract." So that's what she did. She was not a poor Irish washerwoman in the 4 Points or 5 Points area of New York City in the slums. No, that was not her. She was very smart. She was very popular. Billy was a lot like her, a lot like her. She was spirited, she was smart, she was educated. She worked hard, she saved her money. She was a delightful woman. From what I've read, little bits, and because it's the mom, you just read little bits and pieces. They're scattered throughout information because they focus more on Billy. So here's what I've pieced together, and here's what I've learned about her, and it's going to tell you something about Billy. Billy the Kid was actually born in 1861. Now, I even had somebody today tell me, no, he was born in 59. No, he wasn't. He was born in 61, probably May of 61. And I get that because there's new research coming in. So he had a younger brother that was born in 63. And we know that from the census. And his brother said, yes, he was born in 63, and I don't remember what month. I think what's interesting is the younger brother was bigger. He was a half-brother. He was bigger, and some people have said, well, he was the older brother because he was bigger than Billy. Well, pretty much everybody was bigger than Billy. But no, you don't have to be the oldest to be bigger. I have 2 daughters. My younger daughter is bigger than my older daughter, always has been. That's just the way genetics works. So don't tell me that the brother was older because he's bigger. No, that doesn't work at all. So here's an interesting thing about the younger brother. The younger brother was named Joseph Bonnie McCarty. Where does the name Bonnie come from? As in Billy Bonnie. You've heard that? Well, where did he come up with the name Bonnie? Somebody has said, well, you know, Bonnie in Spanish, or it means cute, good, handsome. And yeah, he was quite the jokester. I don't think so. I think what happened was because his brother's middle name was Bonnie, he used that. I mean, I would. But here's how Bonnie came to be. In Utica, New York, where Catherine McCarty was working for the family. Their last name was Mann, M-A-N-N. Now realize that they were very wealthy, Protestant. 4 doors up the street in this very wealthy neighborhood was a family with the last name of Bonnie. Oh, and even better, they had 2 sons. One younger, one slightly older than Catherine. One was married. That doesn't make any difference. So, shortly late, after a while, Catherine comes up with this baby. Woo! And nobody really is saying which one is the father, but you can't tell me that didn't work that way. The facts are just there. You're in Utica, New York. You live 4 doors up from a family called Bonnie, and they have 2 sons. It works. It just all melts together. So here's the kicker. Here's what happens, though. A few years later, Catherine and the 2 boys end up in Indianapolis. Now, this is the end of the Civil War, around 1867. She ends up in Indianapolis. And here's the thing. I've heard people say, oh, well, she took this trip down the river, and she wanted to be in Indianapolis because her husband was a prisoner of war, and she wanted to go see him. Okay, so it's 1867, 68, and you have 2 little boys, and you're going to get on a ship and go down to Indianapolis in the hopes to see your husband, who may or may not be alive? And if he is, are you going to sit outside the fence and wait for him to be released? I don't think so. I think what happened, and this is conjecture on my part, but I put 2 and 2 together. I think the Bonnie family, who was very wealthy, Protestant, has this grandson now who is very illegitimate. So what do? Probably go to the son and say, you have 2 choices. We can disown you, disinherit you, and we'll never mention your name again, or you can help her go someplace else, far away. Well, put them on the train, and the farthest away is Indianapolis. You can't go any farther west. You don't want to take them south because there's all that reconstruction. That's not a good place for a woman and 2 little boys. Send her west. I think that's how she ended up in Indianapolis. And she had money. She opened a laundry. She took in boarders. She had money. Now, part of that was her, but part of that, I think, was Josie. Joseph went by Josie, Josie's dad. So, but she was a hard worker. Catherine worked. She took in laundry, she took in borders, she made goodies, she baked bread, she did anything she could to make a dollar. But she made sure that her boys were educated. She made sure they learned to read and write. Billy was a really, really good writer. If you've seen any of his letters to the governor, to Lew Wallace, who had guaranteed him a pardon, and Lew Wallace reneged. Billy did not, Lew Wallace did. Tells you something about politics, doesn't it? Anyway, she's in Indianapolis. Billy's in Indianapolis. And here comes Bill Antrim. He's 13 years younger than her, and she's late 30s. He's 13 years younger than her. He drives freight wagons. So they meet at some point. I think probably he was delivering something to her, and they got to talking because here she is, relatively young, fun to be with. She had that beautiful Irish accent. She was just a lovely woman. And so he was kind of taken with her. So at one point, she wasn't feeling real well in Indianapolis. If you've been there, it's cold in the wintertime, it's damp. She was having consumption issues, tuberculosis. And about that time, the government said, hey, we've got all this land in Kansas, free to the taking. Why don't you just come homestead? And so she went, well, why not? So she and Billy Antrim, so right at this point, our Billy the Kid, Billy McCarty, changes his name to Henry, which is his middle name, because they already had a Bill. So they decided to have a Bill and a Henry in the family. So they go down to Wichita. Well, they're not married. Catherine and Bill are not married, and they don't want to seem improper. So Bill goes out and buys a couple acres of land on the east side of Wichita. Catherine stays in town, opens a laundry. It's called the City Laundry. And Henry and Josie and Catherine live upstairs. It's downtown. I don't think the building is still there today. I could not figure out for sure whether it was or not. And then the laundry's downstairs. Things are going really well. Bill Antrim is out there building a cabin. He's doing his thing. She's doing really, really well. Catherine is busy buying up property. She buys a bunch of property downtown. She becomes a powerhouse. And you can see this in the charter to create Wichita as a town. There are 136 signatures. One woman. Guess whose it is? Yeah, Catherine McCarty. She was a powerhouse. She was really moving and shaking. She starts getting sick. And Bill Antrim decides that, hey, I understand there's gold in them thar hills. Let's go get some gold. About that time, it comes out in the Denver newspapers that Denver is strewn in the main streets with gold nuggets just for your taking. Well, Bill Antrim goes, okay, let's go. And she's not doing well still. So Denver is one of the places you go if you have TB consumption. So they go to Denver. She sells off most of his property. Actually, yeah, so she sells off most of her property, rents a couple of it. I think Bill Antrim rents some of his, and they head off to Denver. Now, he's a freighter by trade, so he gets a job with one of the freighting companies. They are not there long. In one of Josie's his comment, he says in his memoir, which really wasn't a memoir, it was a newspaper article, that he remembers living in Denver. So from Denver, and I don't know what precipitated this, I have no idea, Bill and Catherine decided, okay, well, let's go get married in Santa Fe. This is November. Well, you're in Denver. What do you have to go over to get to Santa Fe? Yeah. And it was not like the nice highway we have today. Even in the wintertime, you guys all know, it's not always a piece of cake getting over that pass. Try it in a covered wagon or a stagecoach. Ooh, not easy. They went to Santa Fe. I have no idea why they waited until November, December, but they went. Well, you had to be a resident of Santa Fe for like 3 or 4 months before you could get married there. So while they're waiting, Billy decides to work at La Fonda Hotel, which it was the second hotel there. There's now another hotel right on that spot. How many of you have been to La Fonda in Santa Fe? Okay, good, most of you. That particular place right there was the end of the Santa Fe Trail. It didn't go any farther than that. That was the place. The La Fonda that's open now is only the third hotel that's ever been there. So Billy worked in the second one. He washed dishes, but he also played the piano and harmonica. And he sang, had a beautiful tenor voice. But his mother, which I'm sure sang along with him, his mother loved to dance, and discovered the Hispanics had the ballets, like almost every night. Well, she introduced the Hispanics to the Irish jig, and they introduced her to some of the more Hispanic kinds of dances. She loved Santa Fe because she was saying that the women were a lot more free than they were in the States. They called it in the States. They could own a business, they could drink, they could smoke, they could do all sorts of things that women back east couldn't do. And she loved it. She thought it was great. She was learning Spanish, and I can't imagine her Spanish with an Irish accent, but she did. But Billy learned Spanish there. He learned the customs, he learned everything about the Hispanic population. They loved it. So Catherine and Bill Antrim got married there in Santa Fe, and the church, I believe, has now been torn down, I think, but there's lots and lots of pictures of it. You can see where Billy signed, and he signed as a witness, Henry McCarty. He took the Antrim's name, and so I know that I'm assuming that he must have been really excited to finally have a dad. Here he has a real-life dad, and so he took his name. Later on, it didn't work out so well, and he rejected the last name of Antrim, but there for a while, he was known as Kid Antrim, Billy Antrim. So the mom was so instrumental in forming Billy. He, like I said, he learned to dance. He learned the social aspects of the dances of this Hispanic society. So then they moved down to Silver City because there's gold in them thar hills in Silver City. She wanted a place that was cultured for her boys. She wanted a place where the boys could go to school, where they were well tended. Billy loved wearing newer fashions. He liked being clean. I'm sure that came from Catherine. He really enjoyed Silver City, and he was 10, 12, 13 years old. Coming of age. He was in theater. He formed a troupe of actors, and he would bring the kids home from school every day, and his mom would make cookies for everybody. They all swarmed to her house, or to his house. Now, Bill Antrim was always gone. He was out in Arizona and up in Mogollon looking for gold. Things were swell. It could not have been better. And we're talking about the movie The Left-Handed Gun. That was what, Paul Newman, I think? Well, The Left-Handed Gun was based on the picture of Billy that everybody knows that apparently is authentic. He's standing there holding this rifle, I think it is, in his left hand. Well, he was actually ambidextrous. He even admitted that he shot better pistols with his right hand and rifles with his left hand. Very, very ambidextrous. So when people say, oh, Billy was left-handed or right-handed, no, he was both. I don't know if the mom was too, but we don't know. So there in Silver City, he is just having a ball. He is being a good early teenager. Things are going swell. He's 14 years old, 1874. He's 13 years old, 1874. Mom gets sick. The TB comes back. The stepfather is gone. We don't know where he is. Up in the mountains around Payson or Arizona, Springerville, we don't know. For 4 months, Billy sat by her side and held her hand while she coughed. That's the kind of young boy he was. He's 13. In 1874, she died. He was devastated, of course, you can imagine. The thing was, Antrim was not around. The neighbors took the boys in. The neighbors built a coffin for her. The neighbors used their wagon to take her to the cemetery. It was a couple of months before Antrim came back and discovered that he no longer had a wife. I read it in a book one time, and this is absolutely, and it could have been Bob Bell's book, I don't know. It said, if Catherine McCarthy had lived, we would not have Billy the Kid. He would have been another person in history because he was going down really well. He was going down the road to being an upstanding citizen. And when she died and he had no guidance, being 13, 14, wanting to look nice, he figured it out for himself. And he started down where he shouldn't have been. So I feel so sorry for this kid because he didn't deserve it. But he wanted security. He thought he found security in Silver City, rooming with his best friend's parents. They decided to get a divorce. They tossed him out. He ended up in jail for helping steal some clothes because he was told that if he hid the clothes, that he could get the nicest ones. It was from a laundry, that he could take the nicest ones, and that was just too much of a temptation. He gets caught. The guy who actually did it goes down to El Paso and becomes a lawyer, which I thought was pretty funny. So Billy is in jail. He escapes through the chimney, goes to Arizona, finds his stepfather, and the stepfather says, no, you're done. I don't want to know anybody like you. So that's when Billy says, okay, I renounce the name of Antrim. That's my stepfather's name, not mine. So he goes back to being the kid. So again, he's looking for stability. He ends up, and I'm going to make this really short because I know it's getting late. He goes to Lincoln. He meets Tunstall, which there's some pictures here that Tom has done. He meets Tunstall. Tunstall is I've heard that he's like a father figure. No, he was like 7 years older than Billy. He was like an older brother. At that point, Billy and another guy were saving their money to buy a ranch because Billy wanted the stability. He wanted that ranch. Tunstall is killed. Another rug pulled out from under him. Ends up in the Lincoln County War. He's the only person who was ever arrested and gone to trial for a killing during the Lincoln County War. And there were lots of people killed, lots of people shooting, so he's the one that gets in trouble. But I wanted to skip to not just when Billy escaped from the Lincoln County Jail. At the courthouse, if you haven't been there, make sure you go. It is just fascinating. I was looking at this picture, and I've been on the other side of that window, and it is just the coolest thing ever, right? I could just feel Billy. It was really fun. I'm going to skip to where, over here at Stinking Springs. Stinking Springs was a sheep herders camp. And Billy, yes, Billy was held up there, was holed up there. And his friends, Tom Folliard and name just fell out of my head. Charlie Beaudry, thank you. Charlie Beaudry. Those were Billy's two best friends. But Billy had friends everywhere, especially the Hispanics. They loved him. Because he spoke Spanish well, he understood them. It was a major, major blizzard, and Pat Garrett's out there going, "Okay, man, we got to go get Billy." And a lot of the posse was like, "Are you kidding? It's cold. Why should I go through all these snowdrifts for some guy?" So Pat Garrett, being 6'7", says, "You're going." And so they went. And Billy was going to bring a horse inside because it was freezing cold, and the horses were about to die. So he brought in a horse. And then apparently Charlie put on his Billy the Kid's sombrero, his sugarloaf sombrero, and when he went out to get another horse, Pat Garrett shot him dead. And that's how that happened. It wasn't very safe to be friends with Billy or wear his clothes. You can't, not a good idea. So move forward a couple weeks, months. He's over in Fort Sumner. Tom Folliard. Now you see Tom, sometimes it's spelled O''Folliard. It's actually O is his middle initial, just like his dad. But a lot of people have put it together. It makes it Irish. Tom Folliard. It's Tom Folliard. Tom was getting ready. They were all coming into town. And for some reason, Tom was wearing Billy's coat. And Pat Garrett shot Tom. But what saved Billy at that point was Billy had stopped back to get some tobacco. So he wasn't even in this clump of people. So anyway, okay, so here we go. Billy has a lot of girlfriends. He was good-looking-ish guy. They said you wouldn't think of him as handsome, but there was something about him that the women loved. He is, and some of you are going to refute this maybe, but he's credited with fathering about 7 children. None of them grew to adulthood. Had somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, well, why don't they get the DNA? Well, first of all, that's a real problem. First of all, he didn't have any children who survived. And second of all, they're not 100% sure where Billy is. So, not going to do that. So, Billy's best girl, who was with child, Billy's child, there in Fort Sumner, Paulita Maxwell. Now, Paulita Maxwell was Pete Maxwell's brother, and I'm sure you've heard of the Maxwell Land Grant. Pete is the son of the original Maxwell. So they're living there in Fort Sumner, in this big room, it had been the officers' quarters when it was part of the Bosque Redondo. So Pete is in one room at the front, and Paulita is over here. Now there's orchards all around. And Pat Garrett, who was charged with killing Billy the Kid, that's why he was elected county sheriff. And Lincoln County at that time took up at least a third of New Mexico. It was a big county. Pat Garrett told everybody, "Oh, I'm heading east to the panhandle of Texas to look for Billy. I'm not in Fort Sumner. I am not there. No, I would never be there. I'm in the east." And they bought it for the most part. So Billy comes in, and it's fairly late. He comes in, he wants to see Paulita, because the idea was, the scuttlebutt was, he and Paulita were going to elope to Mexico and get married. And it was on the horizon. It was going to be a week, days maybe, and then he would be gone. So he's slipping into Paulita's bedroom, which again is cat-a-corner from Pete's bedroom. Well, it's dark, it's 11:30 at night, and there's orchards all around. Well, Pat Garrett was in Fort Sumner, And he had brought 2 deputies who did not know Billy the Kid. They had never seen him. So they're out hanging around the orchard. So Billy is getting ready for bed. So he takes off his boots, he takes off his pants, he's got the underdrawers. He's not naked. He's got his underdrawers on. He takes off his hat, his gun belt, and he looks out the window and he sees somebody walk by and he goes, God, I don't recognize that person. I bet Pete will know who, because Pete was the mayor domo. He knew everybody. So he says, okay, well, I'm going to go in and ask Pete. Well, right before he did that, Pat Garrett, standing outside, says, I wonder where Billy is. Well, if anybody knows, Pete Maxwell will know. Oh, yeah. So he goes in, Pat Garrett, who's like 11'11", goes in and wakes up Pete and says, do you know where Billy is? And so he sits on his bed. About that time, Billy comes in and says, hey, Kioness, who are those people out there? So he's pointing, he's going, hey, Pete, Kioness. And so, of course, Pat Garrett knows immediately, because he can see him. He knows who he is. Now, like I said, Billy the Kid, as an adult and 20 years old, is my height. He's 5'7" and about 120 pounds. Easy to recognize. Here's Pat Garrett at 6'5" or 7", more than 120 pounds, ready to kill Billy. The problem is, he's sitting on his gun, on his holster. Because when he sat down, it had shifted around, and so he's sitting on his holster, and he's going, if I stand, Billy's going to bolt because it's obvious who I am. I can't just let him go. What do I do? So he very quietly, so while Pete and Billy are talking, he very slowly gets his gun, pulls it, and shoots Billy. I mean, Billy's not even armed. He shoots again and hits the nightstand. So it's a tragedy. It's absolute tragedy. But the funny part is, once they realized, they being Pat Garrett and Pete Maxwell, realized what happened, they jumped up and ran away, leaving Billy there. So the housekeeper came in, who loved Billy. I mean, everybody loved Billy. She came in and she discovered Billy, and that's why she says he didn't have any boots on. Well, no, because he's going to be in bed with Paulita. So I think that's a very interesting story. Here you've got these 2 factions coming together. Later on, about 2 months later, after Billy was laid to rest, we think, we're not really sure exactly where he is, Paulita had a baby, but she had just married a sheep herder who was like 20 years her senior. And she had a baby. And everybody in town, of course, knows whose it was. And some other people are going, oh, it's a miracle. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But that baby did not live. None of his babies lived. And he had mainly girls. But so I hope maybe I've given you a little bit of information about Billy and about his mom, because she was so important to him. And like I said, if she had not died when she did, if she had hung on 5 more years, we would not have Billy the Kid. We wouldn't. Questions? I got a hand back here.
After Billy the Kid got shot, did they do anything to Pat Garrett?
No, they did nothing to Pat Garrett, because that was his job. He was the sheriff. They gave him a raise, and they made him, at some point around 1900, they made him some big fancy dancy word in the government. They kept promoting him. No, they thought he was great. And it was like $500 he got. Yeah. Oh, what happened to the brother is the question. That, again, is a sad story. The brother, when the mom died, he's in Silver City, the brother was sent to work in a saloon as a swamper. Now, this brother is 11 years old, mind you. He's a swamper in a saloon that just happened to do a lot of opium. He became an opium addict, a fiend, did not do well in life, ended up in Denver. He was about 50 years old and died, and nobody claimed his body, and eventually science said, okay, well, we'll take it. But it's a real tragedy. There's an interesting story. There was a reporter was sent by one of the Denver newspapers to interview this guy because apparently between his opium fixes, he was quite the gambler because he learned to gamble in the saloon, so he gambled a lot. And so the guy says, okay, well, tell me all about the gambling. And so apparently he gets back to the office, and somebody says, well, you know, that's Billy the Kid's brother. And he goes, so? So? So that's what happened to the brother. It's really sad. And then apparently Antrim went to live eventually in California, Southern California, with a niece, and he died, and nobody knows exactly where he's buried. So the four of them are just scattered throughout, and it's sad. It really is sad. All right, any other questions? Again, I do have books for sale, but I'm here just to help you understand, and if you want to buy a book, that would be great too. And I want to thank Kathy for inviting me. This has really been pretty quick. We just came up with this about 2 weeks ago. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Melody. Yes, it's great to have you. Thank you, Mike, for giving me a call, and we got Melody lined up. And thank you, Tom, very much. We appreciate your artwork and you, and we're anxious to have our traveling sculpture at some point later in the month or the 1st of September. But we will let all of you know exactly when that is, because we'll have another presentation and a reception, so you'll be receiving invitations. And we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for being here.